Reach IV is a boutique education advisory that helps aspiring students get accepted into top-tier education institutions globally for high school, undergraduate, master's, MBA, and executive.
Right. So very good morning, good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar hosted by ReachIV.com. I'm Ananya Jain, I'm a counselor with ReachIV, and today we have with us Maria Derlipanska, who is the Associate Director of Admissions at the Yale School of Management. Maria, thank you so much for joining us, and we really hope that this webinar is going to be worthwhile for everyone who's joined us and for you, of course. And we'd really like to hear a lot from you about the university, the program, and whatever questions our students have. So the structure of the webinar is going to be such that the first 20 minutes, Maria will get to know more from you, and then open out the last 10 minutes to questions from students. To begin with, can we have like a short introduction from you?
Absolutely. First of all, welcome everyone from me as well. I'm here in New Haven, Connecticut right now. Thank you, Anaya, and thank you, ReachIV, for inviting me to speak more about the Silver Scholars program. I sit on the admissions team, so as all of my colleagues, I read applications, interview candidates, make decisions. I travel around the world for recruitment. And then I also oversee the Silver Scholars program within the admissions office, as well as all of our joint degree programs. And I'm happy to answer questions about those as well. We have 9 joint degree programs, so you can pursue an MBA along with another graduate program at Yale University.
Perfect. So let's dive right in. So Maria, how is the 3-year Silver Scholar program structured, and how is it different from the 2 full-time MBA?
Fantastic question to start with. First of all, the Silver Scholars program was created with the idea of giving college seniors an opportunity to apply to an MBA program and enroll in our full-time MBA immediately after they complete their undergraduate studies. And this is a very distinctive feature of the Silver Scholars program because, as many of the people on this webinar may know, there are many other programs that accept applications from college seniors, but it's deferred admission, right? They're accepted, then they work for a few years, and then they join the MBA program. That's very different from our program. You are admitted as a college senior, and the summer after your college graduation, you actually come and enroll in our full-time MBA program. The point that I would like to make is that it's the exact same 2-year full-time MBA program, meaning that Silver Scholars don't have different requirements or a different pattern of study or different coursework. They're fully integrated with the MBA experience. There's only one major difference. The young professionals that enter the MBA program are required to complete a summer internship between the first and the second year of the MBA program. Silver Scholars come into the program with no full-time work experience. So instead of a summer internship, they do an extended internship after the first year of the MBA program, which essentially means working full-time for a year. So they complete the first year of the MBA program, they work full-time for a year, and they return to campus to complete the second year of the MBA program. Many of our Silver Scholars choose to extend that year of working and work for 2 or 3 years before they return to campus to finish their MBA. That's perfectly fine with us. And some of them have chosen to split their internship year between 2 different internships, especially for the ones that are seeking global experiences. They may work for 6 months in the US and for 6 months in Europe or Asia.
Right. So you mentioned that the assessment criteria is the same. So is it actually the same for someone applying for a full-time MBA program as well? Do you look at everything as a whole package in terms of extracurriculars and the kind of exposure that a student has received?
Yeah. So yes, the application process is absolutely the same. There is only one question on your application that sends your candidacy to the Silver Scholars pool. And the question is, are you currently a college senior? As soon as you check that box and you say yes, your application goes to the Silver Scholars pool. But all the application requirements are the same, with only one small exception, the letters of recommendation. Young professionals are required to submit 2 professional letters of recommendation. Silver Scholars are required to submit 1 professional and 1 academic. The professional can come from a supervisor at an internship or a job on campus, and the academic one needs to come from a professor, a dean, an academic advisor, a mentor, etc. And sort of to the second part of your question, we do look at the same criteria. However, with Silver Scholars, we place a bigger emphasis on academics, because we can never compare the resume of a Silver Scholar to that of someone who has been in the workforce for 4, 5, even more years, right? So that means that we place a bit of a stronger emphasis on their academic performance. By academic, I mean the academic letter of recommendation, the academic record, meaning the transcripts, the courses they've taken, and the test score, the GMAT or the GRE. All of that falls under academics.
Understood. So talking about the applications, so this year you have a really interesting question about the biggest commitment you've ever made. Can you tell us a little more about it? What are you trying to assess with this question?
Absolutely. Very happy to talk about that. The question is interesting and perhaps a little bit unusual for a business school application. We like the question, and the first thing that kind of strikes me is that it's very broad, and that's intentional. We don't want candidates to think that we have the expectation of them to write about a particular type of commitment. We don't. And we're not judging you on the commitment that you choose to write about. What we're trying to understand is the motivation behind the commitment, what compelled you to commit to that thing, and the time, energy, and effort that you put towards that commitment. Okay? Right. So it could be a personal commitment to a significant other, to a sibling, to a parent, to a mentee, to self. Or it could be a professional commitment to a project, to a team, to an organization, employer, and so on. And then we have all sorts of other commitments, industry commitments, or more abstract or conceptual commitments. All of that is perfectly fine. As I said, we're not judging you on the commitment you choose to write about, and we don't compare candidates' commitments. Business school is a big commitment, so the idea behind the essay is to kind of try and understand how you've approached other commitments in your life before.
Completely makes sense. And we have a lot of students who are eager to still apply for round 3. So how are you now, given the global situation today, how are you sort of tackling that? And do the students now have some sort of breathing space to be able to apply?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Anaya. Our hearts obviously go out to everyone that is affected by this situation. We are as well here in New Haven, Connecticut, in the United States. People are affected around the world in really, really tragic ways. We want to be sensitive to everyone's situation. We really have received a lot of communications from candidates around the world. One of the biggest challenges right now is that a lot of the testing centers are closed, so they're not able to take the exam and submit their application in time. So we got together as a committee, and we tried to brainstorm different ways in which we can accommodate them to alleviate sort of that anxiety that they have right now about, can I submit on time? What can I do? My hands are tied. So this is the solution that we came up with. We're keeping the original application deadline of April 14th. However, we are adding a second deadline of May 27th. So if you're not able to submit everything by April 14, you can aim for the second deadline of May 27th. If you apply by the original deadline, you will receive a decision by the original decision release date of May 21. If you apply by the round 3 extended deadline of May 27th, you will hear from us at some point in June, probably the middle or the end of June. In any case, whatever your circumstances are, you can always reach out to us, and you can always tell us your circumstances in the optional essay. I can absolutely assure you that we will take everybody's situation into consideration. It's also our understanding that ETS and GMAT, the organizations that administer the GRE and the GMAT, are actively working to go online and help candidates administer the test on virtually online.
Perfect. I think that's going to put a lot of questions to rest for our students who've joined today as well. So talking about the year 2 internship as part of the Silver Scholar program. So how do you sort of help students securing those internships?
Yeah, great question. So we have an amazing career development office that is staffed with professionals that have industry expertise. So if you're interested in technology, you can consult one professional. If you're interested in consulting, another one, and so on and so forth, for every industry really that you can imagine. In addition to that, the Silver Scholars have a professional in the career development office dedicated to their professional development, internship and job search, and so on. And the challenges sometimes are that, you know, employers wonder, okay, you're an MBA student, but you don't have full-time work experience, and you're not looking for a summer internship, but an extended one. So it's very helpful to have a professional in the career development office support you through that process and help you navigate those waters that might be new to some employers. Obviously, Yale has an amazing relationship with many organizations and employers around the world. But every year we have students that want to work for an organization that no other Yale SOM student has worked for before. So it's nice to have a professional kind of on your side to help you navigate those conversations.
Absolutely agree.
The one point that I wanted to make clear is that there's no such thing as placement, right? We don't have a certain number of spots in different companies and organizations. So the idea always has to come from you in terms of what you're looking for, role, function, industry, geography. But the job of that professional in the career development office is to support you and make sure that this is what you're able to obtain at the end of the day.
Perfect. I think I completely agree that Yale opens a lot of doors for people when they're trying to find work. And what about students who want to pursue sort of entrepreneurial interest? Is that an option as well in the year 2 internship?
Yeah, absolutely. That is an option for all of our students, including the Silver Scholars. And I can think of Silver Scholars who have chosen to pursue that path. We have our own Center for Entrepreneurship at the Yale School of Management with a dedicated director and dean, courses, fellowships, competitions, all sorts of support for students pursuing internships during their, entrepreneurship during their time at Yale and immediately after, because, you know, there's no expectation that your business will take will take off immediately after you launch it. You may need some time, so you need continuous support from the school. And there's a larger Center for Entrepreneurship at Yale University that connects the entire Yale community of students, faculty, and so on. So you have both of resources at your disposal and a lot of opportunities along with it.
Perfect. And so coming to more of like towards lighter questions. So what does a classic day for a Yale student look like? Could you tell us about one or two professors, some classes, what to expect when they reach Yale?
Sure. So the first thing I'll say is that the first year is very different from the second year. The first year is essentially the core curriculum, which is very structured and obviously required of everyone in the program. The incoming class of MBA students is about 350. Silver Scholars make 5% of that MBA class. The entire class is divided into 5 cohorts. And Silver Scholars are equally distributed among those cohorts. And you take the core curriculum with your cohort of about 70 to 80 students, okay? Classes are Monday through Thursday. Friday is dedicated as a professional development day. This is when the Career Development Office schedules a lot of the events, invites a lot of the recruiters, hosts all sorts of events for the students, so they want to make sure that everybody can attend. So yeah, this is kind of the first year of the program. The second year is all electives. And Here, I also want to add another very unique feature of our curriculum is that it gives you access to the entire Yale University. No restrictions and no limitations. You can take as many classes as you want from anywhere at Yale University. The 12 professional schools, Yale College, Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, which is very helpful for students that are trying to develop a certain expertise in a certain field. So let's say students are interested in healthcare. They can go to the Yale School of Medicine or the Yale School of Public Health and take all the classes that they want over there. We have a lot of students interested in environmental issues. They can go across the street to the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies and take as many courses as they wish there. Specific to your point, what classes are very popular? You know, the law school is actually very popular. It's the #1 law school in the world, and a lot of students actually take at least one course there. What will perhaps surprise you is that the single most popular elective has been a class at the Yale School of Drama, and it's called Visual Storytelling. So I think it surprises people because, you know, the drama school doesn't come to mind when you think about business school electives. But it's the kind of elective that when you think about visual storytelling, when you think about presentation, when you think about telling your story in an effective way, that's really relevant to anyone who aspires to be a leader. And across industries and across geographies, it's a skill that you really want to master. So I think this is kind of a surprise to everyone.
Perfect. And what do you think, like, I'm sure after hearing all of this, a lot of Indian students are even more excited to now apply for the Yale program. So tell us what it takes for an Indian student to sort of get through the MBA program.
Yeah, great question. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there about what the committee is looking for in an Indian candidate, a candidate from India, a candidate with Indian citizenship. And I think that one of the biggest conceptions is associated with test scores. Do they have to have an astronomically high, above the average test score? And those are the only people we look at. And I really want to assure you that that's not true. We have a very holistic way of reviewing applications. Everything that you submit to us matters, okay? Your academics matter, your resume, your essay, your letters of recommendation, everything that is part of your candidacy is read and evaluated by the committee, okay? At the end of the day, trust me, we spend a lot of time and effort reviewing your applications, your candidacies. And at the end of the day, our purpose is kind of to uncover and understand the person and professional that you are. So we have never been the business school that looks for a particular profile and expects every candidate to check certain boxes. In fact, what has been historically considered a non-traditional business school student has always been very much at home with us. So we try to recruit a very diverse class, academically, professionally, experientially, geographically. So the point that I really want to drive home is be yourself and show us who you are as a person, as a professional. And this is what's going to kind of resonate with the admissions committee at the end of the day. Everybody's unique, everybody brings something else to the class. So don't try to project something that you think we're looking for, but try to really tell us who you are and how you can contribute and what motivates you and what inspires you and what are your career goals. This is what's going to make for a strong application at the end of the day.
Understood. And I think that's really helpful. Thank you for that. Now we'll move on to the questions that the students have been sort of dropping us. So whoever's joined the webinar, please feel free to sort of drop your questions in the chat. So the first one that we have here is, for the letter of recommendations, can both be from a professional or can both be academic, or does it have to be one of each?
Ideally one of each, but if you would like to submit to professional ones, meaning that you have an extensive resume of having done many different internships, and you prefer to approach two supervisors in an internship, that would be perfectly fine. Especially if one is also on campus, maybe a professor that you do classes with, but also did a projects with on campus, absolutely use that as sort of the academic recommendation.
Perfect. And we have another question about, does Yale offer an MBA with the MPA or MPP as a dual degree? And if it does, then does the GMAT work, or does a candidate have to take the GRE as well?
It's perfectly fine to submit GMAT or GRE, so that's very easy. So I wanted to address that first. And secondly, we have a joint degree with the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs, which is a master's in global affairs, but it's the one that comes closest to a Master of Public Policy. So I would encourage the candidate to take a very close look at that, or email me, after the webinar with more information about that degree.
Perfect. And would you have like a minimum score for the GRE or the IELTS? Do you have like a minimum threshold that a student must sort of reach to?
We don't have a minimum for anything, for the GRE, for the GMAT, for the GPA, because again, in reviewing an application, we understand that everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and one weakness can be mitigated by another very strong point in the application, right? So this is why we don't want to set a minimum threshold, and we don't want to discourage anyone from applying, because, as I said, everything is about strengths and weaknesses. We publish, obviously, in the class profile, we publish some statistics about the current class in terms of average, mean, and 80% range of the GPA, the GMAT, and the GRE. But again, keep in mind, 20% of the class is outside of that range. So, yeah.
Perfect. So it's all about a holistic application and a holistic. Perfect. And what's the acceptance rate for the Silver Scholars program?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
What is the acceptance rate for the Silver Scholars program?
We don't really separate statistics for the Silver Scholars program because, again, it's not a different program. It's not separate from the MBA. So all the numbers that you're seeing on the class profile and in terms of admission and yield and everything else, it's all part of the entire MBA class. Yeah.
Fine.
However, I do want to make the point that I mentioned earlier that the incoming MBA class is 350 students. That's kind of a set number dictated by the school, by the dean. But the Silver Scholars program is not capped.
Okay.
I mentioned that it works out to about 5% of the class every year, but there's no cap on that number. So it's not like we aim to have 25 Silver Scholars and the 26%, no matter how strong they are, they don't have a chance. It doesn't work like that. We can admit more. If the pool is stronger, we can admit more Silver Scholars.
Perfect. Wow, that's I think really interesting, something that most of our listeners wouldn't have known. And how much importance do you place on work experience? So some students who are coming out of an undergrad may not have had as much experience and as much of exposure. So how do you sort of evaluate that? Yeah,
absolutely. Great question. You shouldn't be worried too much about your resume because we understand that you're a college senior. We understand that you would have a few internships on your resume. And I really want to assure you that we don't have an expectation of what your resume should look like. Meaning that we have seen such a huge diversity in work experiences from our Silver Scholars. Yes, some of them have had the very sort of standard corporate structured internships in technology or marketing or consulting or finance and so on. But some of them have been entrepreneurs. They have started ventures, some successfully, some unsuccessfully. As long as you learn from the experience, put it on your resume and we're happy to see it. Some of them have worked for the family company, for the family business. That's their work experience. Some of them are scientists, so all they have is research experiences, publications, working in a lab, or helping a professor with projects. So there's really a huge variety of experiences that the Silver Scholars bring to the table. We even had one archaeologist that had spent his summers excavating in Sicily. So really, we honestly value all different kinds of experiences. I think one of the most important things for the application, specifically for the Silver Scholars, is to be able to show the committee that you have clear professional goals and you know kind of the direction that you want to take for your career. That's the #1 point.
Perfect. I think that's all of the questions and all of the time actually that we have today. Although Maria, we would have loved to speak for longer, but thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing all your insights. I'm sure the students appreciate it equally, and hopefully you will hear some familiar voices through the entire admission process.
Sounds great. Please feel free to share my email with the attendees. I would be happy to field individual questions if anyone wishes to follow up with me and ask more questions.
I think we have one last question related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So if someone's taken the GRE and sort of isn't able to take on another test, another GRE test to improve their scores, what would you suggest for such a student?
So do they mean by the April 14 or by the May 27 deadline?
Yeah.
So let's say even by the second deadline, they're not able to retake their test. Tell us in the optional essay. We just want to know, are you thinking of retaking it? Have you scheduled another day for June? We just want to have the most up-to-date information on what your intentions are, where you're at in the process, so we can work with you.
Perfect. I think that's really helpful. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for Maria as well and Rich Ivy, and I hope we can connect again soon.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And you too.